So that was a 12/8 blues, kind of Albert Collins sort of style. And it's very different to playing the traditional shuffle 4/4 blues, which we looked at in an earlier video. This is a very different feel. If you don't know how to count a 12/8 groove, the best way to think of it is 4 groups of three triplets. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And a lot of slow blueses are done with this kind of feel. And unless you're kind of aware of what's going on, you'll get very lost in your 12-bar pattern. I'm not going to break down every lick that I did in there, but basically, I started off basically this is in the key of B flat. And the notes I was really using were the notes from the B flat major and minor pentatonics. And I also used a Mixolydian mode as well, which has the 6th in it. So we're in the key of B flat. We're going to have this G note in here, bending up to the G sharp. So some of the licks in there are basically just out of the first and second positions. I started off with this really quite common Albert Collins intro, which he uses on the start of Lights Are On But Nobody's Home, which is basically a really, really cool lick to start a blues. You don't really always want to be coming in on the 1 either. You want to either come in before the beat or after the beat. So I think if you come in on the beat, it just doesn't set the song up very well. So coming in before the beat is a great trick. And in this case, if you're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you'd be coming in just before the second 1, 2, 3 triplet. So it starts on the 4th string of the 8th fret, and we're in the key of B flat here. The reason we're in a flat key is a lot of this kind of stuff, in my sort of experience, has always had horns in it, and you know, a lot of B.B. King stuff, Albert Collins, and you always get blues with horns, and it quite often is in flat keys, so you quite often come up against A flat and B flat, so it's a really, really good way to practice playing in keys that you're maybe not so sure of. So instead of just staying in your random E and A positions, it's good to practice in B flat. So we're in B flat today. So we're going to start on the 4th string of the 8th fret. And we're going to hammer on from the 3rd string of the 6th fret to the 7th fret. And then onto the 6th and 8th frets of the 2nd string. And then there's this little tricky, basically you're sliding from the root note on the 1st string of the 6th fret right up to the 2nd string of the 11th fret, which is your B flat. So these are actually the same note. So you're really just given the illusion of a slide, even though you're not really sliding to a new note, if that makes sense. So, I mean, you could just go, but it just doesn't have the same effect as sliding to the 2nd B flat. And then this little pull off on the 1st string. And then we stay up here. This is really position 2 of what I would call the pentatonic shape. So position 1 being, and if you know that position, it's really, really good idea to learn position 2, because you can slide out of that to the 5. And then into this little box position here. In this case, it would be 9th fret, 11th fret on both strings, 1st and 2nd. You'd also have the 10th fret on the 3rd string. And there's your home note, B flat. It's always good to know where your roots are as well. When you're going through these changes, whether it's in a 12/8 blues or a 4/4 blues, you really want to spell out, not always, but quite often, especially at the start of this sort of stuff, you want to at least spell out the chords. So when you're playing over your 1, it's always a good idea to resolve back to the 1 note. So in this case, you're resolving back to B flat. So if you're up here, it's a good idea to resolve to that note there on the 2nd string. Here, you can resolve to the 1st string on the 6th fret, or if you're on the 4th string, it would be the 8th fret. Just when you're on the 1 chord. When you're on the 4, it's not as important. You can spell out the 4 note, which in this case would be the E flat. But you can also use your 5. Over the 4 works nice. On the 5 change, it's nice to go to the 5 as well. There's your basic 4, your 3 notes for your chords. You've got your B flat, your E flat, and your 5, which is your F there. So if you spell out those notes, it'll make you sound like you know what you're doing, even if you don't know what you're doing. You can trick them and fool them. So. Okay, so then we went up to this little, what I call a BB King position, which everybody talks about. BB King doesn't actually play so much in the traditional first and second shapes. He kind of has this little mix of major and minor that he uses. And the best way to find that is if you're basically in your first position and you're just playing your minor pentatonic scale, where your finger lands on the 7th, on the flattened 7th, if you just move it up 2 frets, so in this case you're going from frets 9 to 11, and then replace your first finger from your 3rd finger. It kind of opens this little sort of zigzaggy box where you're going from the 10th fret to the 12th fret on the 3rd string, and the 11th fret and the 13th on the 2nd. Then sometimes you can go outside of that and you can go actually to the 14th. Especially for your bends. Now your root and your resolve note is going to be, again, like before, your B flat on the 2nd string here. So. And you can also throw in the little flat 5 here on the first string on the 11th, 12th and 13th frets. So the kind of little box is this, I'm going to call it in 3rd string, it's going to be 10, 12, 2nd string is going to be 11, 13. And occasionally the 12th, occasionally the 14th, and the 11th and the 13th on the 1st. So I went up to, it just takes you really nicely back to your 1 chord if you're playing that over the 5. So. Couple of nice things to work on there. As far as the rhythm goes, you really just want to keep it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's actually a whole bar. So you don't count in groups of 4. So for instance, on the quick change on the 1, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can count it like that, or you can count it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which I think is a bit of a tongue twister. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's your 4 chord. And you can slide it up for some effect. And then your 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 4 chord. And then the turnaround, 1, 4, 5, 6. These are split bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the chord at the end is an F augmented, which is a really nice 5 chord for the end of this kind of slow blues thing. Going back to your 1 chord. So hopefully that'll give you some insight on how to play over a 12/8 kind of slow to medium blues. Obviously this requires a number of lessons to go into depth about it, but I should give you a heads up on it anyway.